Good afternoon. Welcome to the Westport Board of Health, June 12th, 2023 meeting, which I'm calling to order with the announcement that under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. And if you'll all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move first to Matt's report. We have a written report from Matt. I'm going to ask you, you've changed the format. I'm going to ask you to summarize your report.
Yeah, so this will be the new format, and I figured, I'll write down everything that I normally speak, and if the board had any questions, they can ask. If not, we can just move along. But if you want me to actually read each category?
Well, I think it's helpful because there's information that's useful to the general public.
Okay, sure. So on the Board of Health, we're in temporary event season. There's many new and returning events and vendors. With the Sunset Music Series, looks like it's starting on June 9th through September 9th. I believe that's up at the winery. There's the Wine, Chocolate, and Cheese Festival that's being put on June 17th. Westport Fair is July 14th through July 18th. And the Westport Summer Farmers Market is 6/17 through 9/30.
And those are all, they need permits for either selling food or...
Yeah, if there's going to be any mobile food or one-day setups, they would need a temporary event permit. Some of the mobile vendors might have already a permit with us, which would allow them to do it, but if there's like one day, somebody stopping up for one day, they need a temporary license for that event.
Okay, thank you.
Transfer station, the town is looking to hire a transfer station attendant 2. Appointment applications and job information can be found on the town website. As a reminder, the transfer station stickers for July 1st are now on sale. You can purchase them at the transfer station during normal operating hours, which is Thursday to Monday, 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The transfer station only accepts checks and money orders, no cash or credit cards. You can also purchase transfer station stickers and punch cards at the Board of Health office during normal business hours, which is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Credit cards are not accepted. Animal control, we have a new part-time animal control officer that has completed her first week of orientation with Nick. She has one more week of orientation before starting on her on-call duties. And just another reminder that dog licenses are due each year by April 1st. As of July 1st, there will be a $15 late fee imposed for dogs not yet licensed for this year.
Matt, can I ask, do we know how many people have not gotten licenses for their,
I
haven't
don't.
gotten relicensed?
I don't, because we can get a list of who's licensed, but we have no idea the world out there that's not licensed. So, and it's kind of a big world, out there for that in town. And the clerk holds all those records because they have the licensing authority for dogs in town.
Okay, any questions for Matt?
None for me.
Okay, and no plans for review this week, right?
None.
Okay. Let's do the minutes quickly, and then I'll check in with Nicole about exactly what she wants to talk about and whether she wants to wait for the other topics. We have minutes from May 1st, our special meeting, which preceded the regular meeting, and that was before town meeting, and May 15th. Any questions, comments, edits on any of those minutes?
I have one on the May 1st regular meeting, and who is present. Phil seems to be missing. And he was present and voted, so that would be just to make sure his name is on there as present.
Okay.
And what was the other one? I see that there was something written in as an edit, just to make sure that that is in the official, minutes on page 3 of 3 on 15. It says with a variance for 12, it says 12-foot separation, it's 12-inch separation.
Okay.
So to make sure that that is adjusted on the minutes.
Okay. Anything? Phil?
Okay. Nothing from you, Phil?
No, I'm sorry.
So I move that we approve the minutes from May 1st, 2023, the special meeting, and then May 1st, 2023, with the addition of Phil being present added to that. And that's for the regular meeting. And then May 15th, 2023, just to make sure that it's adjusted with, on page 3 of 3, motion, that the variance for the 12-inch separation, not the 12-foot separation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the special meeting minutes of May 1st, regular meeting May 1st, and regular May 15th meetings with those corrections noted. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Aye, thank you. I got to say it too. Thank you. Okay, under other business, we have no appointments today, so other business, we have annual appointments for FY24, the town nurse employment agreement, Saturday, Sunday pay rate discussion for highway, transfer station operation contingent planning discussion, moratorium discussion for non-failed cesspools along Route 6, information table for River Day, and board member updates. And you had some things you wanted to talk to the board about. Do you want to, are they related to any of those topics?
Towards moratorium on the cesspools.
So you would wait for that discussion anyways. Why don't we have you come during that discussion?
Okay.
Okay. So let's get through the annual appointments for FY24. We are being asked to reappoint Dr. Dennis Callan as medical advisor, Kristen Stinson as burial agent, special agent, Jonathan Potter as burial agent, Shane Erickson Potter as burial agent, and Jennifer Doe Texera as part-time tobacco inspector.
Okay. So I move that we approve all of those appointments as written.
Second.
As stated.
Motion made and seconded to reappoint the persons aforementioned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, second agenda item, the town nurse employment agreement discussion and vote to move to the Board of Selectmen for approval. I'm going to turn to Matt for explanation.
Sure, Linda's employment agreement is up. She does a year by year instead of a 3-year. The only changes were to dates, obviously, and the 2% increase to the salary. Other than that, there's no substantial changes to the agreement.
Okay. I take a motion to endorse that agreement and request Board of Selectmen approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to move the Linda Pierce Town Nurse Employment Agreement to the Board of Selectmen for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next agenda item, Saturday, Sunday pay rate discussion and vote for highway staff covering at the transfer station. Again, I'll turn to Matt for a summary of the situation and where we stand with that.
Sure, so we've oftentimes, whether it be vacation or call-outs, we're shorthanded at the transfer station. We need 3 people to have a full complement of employees, but we have 2 right now. So if somebody calls out or is on vacation, that leaves us with 1. And we can't operate the transfer station with 1 person. We need a minimum of 2. So when we do end up in a situation with 1, I call on the highway department to see if they'll be able to send somebody over on a Saturday or a Sunday. During the week, I try to fill in the gaps with our staff upstairs at the Board of Health, but Saturday, Sunday is a little difficult. So the highway department comes over, we'll send the person over, and the agreement that we have is Saturday's time and a half and Sunday is double time. Because the highway department works Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday is, 40 hours plus for them, and it's the Teamsters union contract states Saturday's a time and a half, Sunday's a double time. They come from a different union and a different contract, which is stated differently. So when they come over to help us, they should be, fall under the same rules as our contract. So when they did, there was some confusion about that, and their pay went over wrong last month. So I emailed you guys separately, then a letter was sent over to accounting, then over to Jim Hartnett, and he endorsed it, and I just wanted to get the formal approval from the board, just formally as a vote, to pay them time and a half and double time for Saturday and Sunday, highway department personnel.
Corresponding to the contract that covers transfer station employees.
Yes.
Okay, I would take a motion to endorse that.
I just
Or
wanna
is there discussion?
I just wanted to, so in terms of where the money comes from that, can you address the money that we have available?
I can't tell you specifically because I don't have it memorized, but I can say that we've been without somebody this year for, quite a few times, so there's still money left in the personnel side of the budget because we've had gaps of employment that when we do need somebody to cover, we can cover it under our budget.
I just
The
wanted
FY
that to,
'23 budget.
FY23 budget. FY24 budget, we'll be starting off in the same boat
Right.
with the gap in, we're budgeted for 3 people, but we'll only have 2. So depending how long we go without somebody, there'll
Mhm.
still be money available to help with the fill-ins.
I just want that to be stated for the record so that people know that it's not additional funding that's going to be needed, but it's already within our budget and it's available within our budget.
And the reason that it's important to do that is to be able to keep the transfer station open. Otherwise, if we're only down to 1 staff, it's unsafe, and we can't open, and residents would not be happy.
They wouldn't have access.
Right, so it would be a reduction in service. We try very hard, or Matt, I should say, tries very hard to avoid. He works really hard and gets calls at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday that he has to scramble. So I hope people appreciate the efforts he makes. So we have a motion. Oh, do
So
we have-
moved, no.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to endorse the Saturday at time and a half and Sunday at double time pay rate for highway staff, department staff covering at the transfer station. All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous, thank you.
I also want to just say, isn't also the highway staff, they're able to use the
Equipment.
equipment
They
too,
have
right?
hoisting.
They're
Yes.
they're licensed for hoisting and all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial when somebody from highway covers,
Yes.
because they all have their Class B and they have their hoisting licenses, so if we need things moved, crushed, whatever, they can do it. And we're very appreciative of, their willingness to give up a weekend day to come and help us. It's been, fantastic.
But that does roll right into agenda item number 4, which is contingent planning for the transfer station. As you both know, or everyone knows, we've been having difficulty maintaining staffing at the transfer station, and at some point that's going to come to a head, and we want to talk through some contingencies, I think, that we would want to bring forward to the Board of Selectmen to get their recommendations, endorsement for some of those contingencies, because the worst possible option for us at this point is having to close a transfer station for a day, especially on a weekend day, and when people are relying on it. So, Matt, do you want to talk us through some of the options we've talked about?
Some of the options would be on a weekend, if we had to close because we had one person and nobody to fill in. But that's the worst option there. If we can't hire somebody in soon to have 3 people, we run the risk of closing, we run the risk of shutting down services, meaning if a trash dumpster starts to fill up and we need to swap them out, but we can't because nobody from highway is available and none of our people who are there would be licensed to move anything, we may have to shut down trash service for the day. Which, that's the biggest, people come to dump their trash. And if we're full and can't accept it, then we're kind of, it's not good. So one of the thoughts that I had were, we've got this ad out on Indeed, and I've been getting a lot of applicants, but nobody's got the qualifications that we're looking for or need for the position. So I was hoping to talk to the board about going through a temp agency to get a person in with their hoisting license. They would come in for a maximum of 3 months, and if they proved out that they were a good fit, then we could hire them from the temporary outfit. But if not, within that 3-month period, if they don't work out, we can just simply give them back and say send to somebody else, which is nice. We don't have to go through the whole hiring process and all that time and effort that so many departments have to be involved with. Just to have to cycle somebody every 3 to 4 weeks, it doesn't seem very efficient and the best way to do it right now. There is an additional fee. Do you remember what the additional fee was, Tanya? Let's say, just using round numbers, if we paid somebody $20 an hour.
It would then be $30 an hour, but they cover all benefits for that period of time until we hire, if we hire.
Right, so they carry the insurance, they carry all the liability, workman's comp. The town doesn't have to do any of that until we hire said person on as a permanent employee. But at least we get us somebody there to fill the void until we hire somebody. And talking with the temp agency, kind of informally, they do have people that do carry that license that are looking for work, so.
Whether they're willing to work at the pay rate that Westport offers is
And every
another matter.
weekend, and every weekend.
Yeah.
We don't know. We haven't, I didn't want to dive too much into the temp agency thing until I was able to talk to the board, and then I think we're gonna have to get the Board of Selectmen approval as well, so.
Mhm. So that's one option, temp to hire. Questions, thoughts on that?
So how does this tie in? So this is a more firm alternative than relying on the highway department to fill those roles?
Well, the highway department's not a guarantee, right?
Right, that's,
Yeah, oftentimes, it's, I get a call at 5 in the morning, and then I feel funny calling other people at 5 in the morning, so I wait till around 6:30, start calling people, but there's the possibility that nobody could be available from the highway
right,
department.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, so, and then if that's the case, and we couldn't get them to fill in, then we'd have one person, we'd have to close for the day.
But the long term, the full complement of staffing is 3 people.
Right.
We
Right.
need one at the gate, at the entrance. Tim does all the, the
Machine work.
machine work. And then we need a yard person who helps residents with,
Right, right, yeah.
with answering questions, cleaning, keeping everything clean and tidy, and, making sure things go in the right spot, people don't put their trash in the newspaper bin, which happens, et cetera. So we've, as you both know, we've had trouble maintaining a full complement of staff for the last year and a half. The pay rate is very low. They have to work weekends. For $19 an hour, it's not, it's a challenge to fill that position.
They could be lifeguards for that.
They could be lifeguards and earn more money.
Make more money.
Using a temp agency, there may be questions from the select board around policy or whatever, working with the union. But we have tried, and right now, we don't have an HR department, so it's up to us to do the hiring, recruiting, advertise. We can't even advertise. We don't get a budget to advertise, so we put it on Indeed for free. We post it in town. We try to do word of mouth, but that's all labor intensive. It's really no way to run a railroad. It's challenging. It's
Yeah,
time
no, I
consuming.
know.
It takes away from Matt's more important duties, in my opinion. And so this is essentially hiring somebody to help us do the hiring.
And so then what are the, like for the 20, let's say it went ahead, but then there's the fee for the agency, how does that affect the what was budgeted for the position?
So the,
Because it's, we're paying the hourly to the employee, which was, I assume, what we budgeted for, but then there's a premium on top of that for the, for the work that the temp agency did, right?
yeah, well, they charge with an extra $10 an hour.
Right.
So when
And
we
then when it
went,
becomes permanent,
No,
then it goes away, or?
no, after 3 months, if it works out, then we would hire them on permanently.
Right,
And then it would get, our rate would go back to $20 an hour. We wouldn't have to pay an additional fee to the temp agency once we take on the person.
okay,
But while they work for the temp agency,
Okay.
there's an additional fee.
okay, but it ends if we take on the person.
The additional fee ends.
Okay, I thought there was some different arrangement about it.
That was if we did direct hire.
Oh, I see.
If we did a direct hire, then we have to pay them, I think it's 20% of the yearly salary,
Okay,
one time.
right,
But that's not the agreement that we would enter into for this
okay,
position.
okay, so I just wanted to clarify that in my own mind. Okay.
But as far as the budget goes, when we budgeted, we wanted to budget for somebody with a Class B,
Yeah,
which is a higher pay rate. It's like, I don't know, $23 or $25 an hour versus the 19,
right,
30 or something like that, or 1950. So if we hire somebody in with the hoisting and not a Class B, then there's a little bit in the budget that could carry that. Finding somebody with a Class B to start around $21 an hour is going to be near impossible.
right,
But we wanted to budget for that, you never know.
yeah, yeah,
So we wanted, that ultimately would be what we want, a Class B
Right.
and a hoisting, but,
right,
I'm not optimistic about that.
yeah,
So we could carry it,
Okay.
I think, for the 3 months.
okay,
Not to mention, we have this gap in employment. So, and that'll be that way for the first month and a half, I think, by the time we get through all the steps to get somebody in. If it's through the
Yeah.
temp agency, we'll have like a month or a month and a half gap in the FY '24 budget.
yeah, right, okay.
So that was, you had options, that's one option.
right.
Well, I don't, yeah,
I think we need to have a contingency plan because there may be objections by the select board. We
Yeah.
know that there may be, that we've heard of internal objections, so.
right,
So if there's no support for that, do you want to talk about the third option, or second option of just going back to an attendant one and what the implications of that are?
Right, so we could remove the requirement for hoisting license and just get a laborer, basically. But that just really handicaps us on the weekends. If Tim was out, we have nobody to move anything or do anything. But
right,
we'd have, the right amount of people without the right
skill
licenses
set,
to do it. But I think it would solve a lot of problems, but we'd still have some. It wouldn't solve all of them. I think that's probably the last place I want to go, is to
Uh-huh.
hire just a laborer.
right,
But there are candidates who submitted resumes who
Right.
don't have a
I
hoisting
see.
license, who
could fill that position.
whether they're willing to go the next pay level
Right,
down,
right,
I don't
right.
know, and
Yeah.
work weekends, until they find, a lot of times on Indeed, there's no, it's, the resumes come because there's some AI match that says, oh, here's somebody who fits
Mhm.
your criteria, and once they hear about the fact that they have to work Saturdays and Sundays, and the pay is like $19 an hour, then they say, oh, I'm not interested.
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
not a lot of, you have to do a lot of work to get to somebody who. might
These people
actually-
don't actually, who apply from Indeed, I won't even think they see that they're putting in for the job until after we reach out to them. So they often don't know up front that the job, the job is posted saying you have to do what the hours are and the days. But these people have no idea that they're applying. I think it, like Tanya said, Indeed just automatically blasts it out because there's some keyword match. And then when you talk to the people and you tell them the hours and the pay, they're like, oh, well,
That's usually
So-
what happens.
So the last time we talked about this, I know we got some pushback from the town administrator, which then, as I interpreted, caused us to put this on pause, but has that resistance diminished, or we just feel like we want to make the case to the select board, knowing that the administrator may not support it?
I think we're at a point where, we're banging our head against the
Right.
wall enough. Matt
Right.
has, it's 5 o'clock in the morning having,
Right, right.
that's just not sustainable
Okay.
long term.
And-
Okay.
And we're, I mean, part of what I'm thinking, you're talking about Tabitha, right? What happens with Tabitha, her position?
No.
Well, didn't we want to have her come in
Oh, on a temp basis,
on a
yes.
temp basis
Right.
and to see if it would work out, and then if it worked out, then we would offer her the position. So.
Yeah, we changed and we decided just to go with it.
Yeah, and so we just went with just having.
But that, we had a qualified candidate in-house. We don't
Yeah,
have it.
we don't have it.
Thing right now, so we've gone through the carousel a few times trying to get qualified
Yes,
candidates,
we
so.
We certainly have.
it was just, that's a non-union position. The
Right.
transfer station's union, so
Ah,
a
so
little
it's
bit more difficult. At the end of the day, the person, if they're a good fit, they will be hired and will become a union employee. We're talking about a 3-month window here. So I don't, I know the argument I hear is, well, it's a union position, the union might not like bringing somebody in, temporary, but at the end of the day, within 3 months, if they're a good fit, they will be a union employee. It's not like they're
Mhm.
gonna be an indefinite, not in the
Right.
union. So I don't really understand the basis for that argument. But I feel, I think we need to bring this to the attention of the select board, because we really, now we're busy. We're in summertime, and lots of new, people come into town to visit Westport and come back to their summer houses, so business really picks up. I'd rather have 3 people there than 2.
And we remain vulnerable to having to close.
Yeah.
If we can't get, for a day or a few days. And that's probably not something that, so but it would be up to the select board to say, yeah, we're willing to negotiate or allow that in order to preserve consistent service at the transfer station. If they're not, then at least we have the opportunity to say to the public, here are the risks. Please, check our website, check our
Mhm.
sign. We may not be open on a day because
Right.
we don't have the staff.
Yeah. Well, I would support going to the select board and running it by them.
Okay,
I do too.
okay. So I would, I don't know if we need to take a formal motion on that, but I think we're all unanimous in.
Well, take a vote, please.
Okay, sure. So I would request a motion to present to the select board some contingency options for staffing at the transfer station as we've discussed. Meaning the attempt to hire option using a temporary help agency, and failing that, trying to hire keeping the option to hire an attendant one with the recognition that service will be reduced on days when we don't have a full complement of staff, because we won't have anybody who can move smush trash or move dumpsters.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to present contingency planning options to the select board. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay. All right, the next agenda item is a discussion about possible moratorium or ways of coordinating the cesspool upgrade or phase-out mandate with the sewer planning. And Nicole, you wanted to talk about that? You want to come up and?
Yes.
Well, you can, but you can just come to the table.
Okay.
There's a mic there, so.
Grab a comfortable chair, have a seat.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicole Plant with the Even Keel Realty. I am the owner broker. Thank you for having me. I have been doing real estate in this town for over 22 years now. I am a Westport local. This was my first grade classroom. So just to let you know, this is my roots. I have been asked for the past couple months, even when you passed in February of 2021, what does this do to me? What does the cesspool upgrade do to me? A lot of the consumers are panicking. Well, Matt and I have had a lot of discussions, and many people have had a lot of discussions. Now we have a perfect storm. We have the DEP, as many people know, in the limbo that we're all in right now. We have economic development talking about sewer, and we have an older population in this town overall. Most of these people have been born and raised here for many, many years. I go to homes on listing appointments. They've been in their house since 1955, and they've raised their children, and they want to leave it to the next generation, which they can in Title V. They don't have to do a Title V inspection. They can leave it and pass it to the next generation. But in Westport, they have to upgrade the cesspool. Some cesspools do pass Title V, and I've talked about people like that. In other towns and other parts of, in Title V, cesspools can pass if they're out of the water table. And that when this whole thing came to my attention, I'm like, it kind of makes sense right now. We're kind of in a perfect storm of, we're talking about sewer. So economic development's talking to me about how we're gonna put sewer lines in on the north end. We're talking about planning board, we're gonna try to get to the drives, we're gonna try to get to certain sections. So you go on a listing appointment with all the rumors that we've got going on, because nothing is solid right now. Let's talk, nothing is solid of what's going to happen. But if you're sitting in your home and you are an average income, and this is a quote from Mike Burris, and hopefully that allows me to quote him for this, that the average income in the north end in certain areas is $30,000 a year. You're asking them to replace their cesspool. You're asking them to maybe someday in the next 10 years get a sewer tie-in, which is another upgrade. And then if they don't get the sewer gate, we have this thing floating out here by the DEP, the best available technology. Where does it end for that consumer and that taxpayer? So it starts here at the local level, because we have a cesspool that might actually pass Title V. And when you go on these listing appointments, Nicole, I've pumped it every year. My grandfather built it. The pumper guy tells me every time it's great. Then I go to other houses that when I email Nancy and Pat upstairs, no records, don't even know where it is. Nobody knows what's in the ground. So this board has sent out letters to everyone with cesspools. And did the panic calls start? But we also, I can tell you, in the past 3 weeks, I've requested records upstairs. No records on file. None whatsoever. No idea of where the well is, no idea where the septic is. Okay, great. Well, I have no information other than to do a Title V inspection. These families don't have the money. They don't even know what, but they inherited a home, but now we've got to start from ground zero. The process is taking a long period of time, and I heard that you're having hiring problems just like everybody else in the world right now. But if from a failed system, once I do a Title V, then we do a fail, then we have to do a perk. I've got to get an engineer, and I've got to schedule a perk. I then have, right now I did one on June 8th, we requested a perk. I didn't get a perk date until July 5th. That's a month. This house is on the market. Then I have to hire the engineer to do the plan, and then the Board of Health has to approve it. That could be anywhere from another 2 weeks to a month, month and a half. I haven't put anything in the ground. By the time I get a buyer for that house, I'll be over 3 months. I'll lose financing. That house will not go through. The process is dragging too long. So I'm trying to say we are more of a perfect storm than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
We're a lack of engineers. We're a lack of help from the Board of Health for perks. Johnny Schwartz does a great job, but he can't be everywhere at any time. We're looking for help out in the field, and we're also looking for education. Most people I am seeing septics that fail are not cesspools. They are leaching fields for people who have never had a septic system in their entire life. They do not know how to maintain it. They come from the city and they put everything down the drain. They have no idea that their water filtration systems should not be going into their septic. They have no idea that it should be pumped every year. I have gone on so many listing appointments and people do not know that the town requires them to, or asks them to pump it every 3 years. And I look at them and I go, it is a requirement of the town that you have it pumped every 3 years. We are not going, I'm asking the board as a taxpayer here, but as a relationship with the consumers out there who are in a panic mode. Can we get back to the basics? Title V was put into place for drinking water. Most of the people do not know how to take care of their wells. They don't know they have bacteria in their wells. We are gone to the denitrification so much that we forgot about the basics about Title V, in my opinion. I teach classes about Title V. I will tell you, most people do not know how to maintain their wells. They do not know how to maintain their septics. I am asking this board if there was money in a budget to have myself, I would even volunteer my time to help educate the public right now. But we have a bunch of consumers who are nervous, anxious, confused, and they're worried about a hardship. There's grants, yes, I know, but if they put in a denitrification system, that will cost them money to maintain. It will cost them money for their electric bill. It is not easy for some of these people on a set income. I just had a septic system that did cost a consumer $75,000. And if it costs them $75,000, they don't get their return on investment if they're in their 70s or 80s, and that family is going to sell. We are going to be forcing residents out of this town that are from here. This is not a one-size-fit-all solution, the denitrification system. We have multiple scenarios, and yes, there are waivers, and I explain to people there are waivers, there's things we can talk to the engineer, they can come to this board and sit and ask for waivers. That you've seen me in the back of the room, I sit and I listen and I talk and I coach. That's what we need to be doing, and I think we all need to be doing a better job, because we have people who are going to start leaving, and especially the North End, for no reason other than they're panicking. And families are not keeping their homes for that reason. And they're born and raised here. And that's not fair, and their children will not stay here because of these regulations that are in place. And that's why I'm speaking today, because I've been asked so many times to speak, and I've been hiding, and Matt knows I've talked to him, and everybody knows, you've all heard me talking behind the scenes, but I finally decided that I'll put my face to this, because I feel that this perfect storm is affecting so many ways, from the DEP to the Board of Health, and I'm sorry, I do agree, I love the Westport River, but the Title V comes back to drinking water. It does not come back to agenda-based for the Westport River. My logo is sailing in the Westport River. It is not, we gotta protect the consumers, because if we don't have the consumers, then we have a big diversity in this town, and then we don't have the tax base, and then we have a whole bunch of tax problems in the long term. We have such a division now that people can afford these D-nights, and then we have a whole bunch of people that can't afford these D-nights. It's very class differential, and you see it every single day when you go out in the field, and they literally sit there and they pray, or, okay, if it's this system, I'm gonna have to leave. I don't have enough money to pay it back. I won't have enough money for the home. I won't have enough money to do my retirement. I'm going to have to leave. That's not a conversation that I think this board, yes, they can come here with a hardship. Do you think anybody wants to sit in my seat and tell everybody into the public their hardship? They don't want to sit in front of you and tell you their hardship. They rather sell. And I think that's one of those things that I don't think people understand, that they don't want to sit in front of a board and let everybody air their dirty laundry. Not everybody has the guts to do that. And I'm very passionate about it, because if you go into some of these people's homes and you see how proud they are of their homes, and most of them are, and they've done the right thing, they've maintained that system faithfully, and they've done everything. 90% of the people in this town have done everything right. There's only about 10% that I would say, where's my septic? I'll deal with that when I sell. that 10% is our biggest problem, and I would agree with 100% with that. But is there a way we can help go after that 10%? But yes, if there's a moratorium up towards Route 6, I would not just say Route 6, I would say the north end overall, or you can't diversify it by income, but if the cesspool, until the DEP comes up with that, because it's bigger than Westport itself, that's what I'm asking for, not just a little area. I'm asking for the town to look at that as a whole for now. Because I think new construction is new construction, they can afford it. But you're asking the average consumer with a perfect storm of three different approaches right now.
Thank you. You made a lot of good points, and I think we, you make some strong arguments. I think there's a lot of things we can talk about. We've tried to do some outreach around the cesspool letters and had these virtual sessions. We had talked about doing something in person, maybe at the senior center or something like that, and it seemed like the inquiries had died down. What I'm hearing from you is we may not be hearing directly, but you are.
I am. My office is a buzz. I call it even keel social work when it comes to cesspools and septics right now.
Yeah.
That's the everyday conversation.
So certainly, we have prepared materials. We have the FAQ document. We also had slides and presentation. And we're happy to. I'm happy to. I think the board would be happy to do more education. In terms of one thing is to be clear, because I'm not sure it came through clearly in your presentation. I want to make sure we understand that the cesspool upgrade is to Title V standards, not D9. So,
Right.
is that
If
that's your understanding?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we understood.
So most people think that the way the reg came out in February of 2021, most people see that all cesspools fail. And so most people see that as the February 2021 that you guys, the board
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah.
And that they see that no cesspools pass. So that's how they read it.
Yeah.
And so that when they see that, they don't even want them inspected. So like I had a conversation with Matt that I had one that the family wasn't sure if it failed, they were going to keep it. So I did not do a Title V. I just went for the perk once we had an offer accepted.
Mhm.
So I just automatically didn't do the fail, because if the family kept it, they would not have to do a Title V right away.
Mhm.
They were going to see if they could get an equity line after all of that and see if they could keep the home. So there's ways around, so if you do a Title V, you have 2 years, it triggers the 2-year mechanism.
If it fails. Right.
If I have a home listed and then the family can't afford it, that if I don't sell it,
Mhm.
and that family's told me, well, if it doesn't quite get the number I want, why would I automatically do an inspection? Because it triggers everything in the Title V code.
Mhm.
I would then keep it in the queue and then so that family could keep it, because Title V does, right as of today, does not trigger a sale. And that a transfer within a family does not trigger title. So then they'd have to 2026 per the town right now to do that cesspool upgrade.
Right.
So I would not have done a Title V inspection on that home.
Mhm.
So I called Matt and I talked. I said, no, I did not do a Title V for this reason. I did a perk once I got an offer accepted. There was no need to do a Title V fail. I just went into automatic into a new system.
Okay.
So there's lots of ways. In my job, I protect the consumer by who I am hired. So that's my job.
Mhm.
I protect my client and what their needs are and their long-term goals. But if that system on that property will be about $50,000. So
For just Title V.
just Title V.
Must be not a very.
It's a
I mean,
small
that's-
lot, it's a small lot, non-conforming, all of the triggers, all of that. So if the family realizes that it's not worth it and somebody in the family wants to keep it, why would you trigger that Title V? As a realtor, my job is to protect my client.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't do a Title V.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of these conversations come up in these, so some people they don't do the inspection if you're protecting that client, if the family would keep that home or sell it to a family member, direct line to their kids, or leave it to the children, because again, if it doesn't sell and say the economy changes, which it is changing, the economy changes, then it becomes a different animal.
Okay.
Then I would less likely, if the son or daughter could inherit the home, or or the grandchildren inherit that home, I would not trigger a Title V. I might wait until I have an accepted offer and then do it.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to trigger something that they might not be able to afford 2 years down the road on that home.
So, I'm just trying to understand this. So you're seeing a lot of scenarios where people they're just sort of
They want to
exploring the option of selling.
explore,
and-
seeing if they should get out of here and if they can get the number for their home so they can get out, because they're nervous. They're starting to get nervous.
Mhm.
So it's just because they're going to list doesn't mean I'm going to do a Title V.
Okay.
And Title V inspectors are backed up in this area right now because of that.
Yeah.
They're backed up because people are feeling it out. They're trying to understand what is going on. But some realtors don't explain to them that if you do that, it triggers the 2-year if you fail.
Mhm.
They don't understand that once they do that, now they're up against a 2-year moratorium. Yes, they may not have the money, but here's another problem is the banks may not lend the money. We're at an 8% interest rate. Yes, there's grants here, but they don't have the income. They don't have the money to go and get this system.
Mhm.
When you're making $30,000 a year income, and how do you pay that back on a line of credit that they might have that's 8%, and they don't want to come to the town for a grant? It's very hard for these people to justify the numbers. It's very hard for them to come and swallow that pill.
Mhm.
Most people do not want government involved in their homes. They want to do it privately. And that is what you're starting to see. They don't want us to see their numbers. They do not want us to see their dirty laundry.
Mhm.
And that is what I see. And I'm here because they're proud. They want to keep their homes. They just don't want us all to see what they have going on.
Mhm.
So the grant might be great, but it's for the it's a 1% but they have to install the denitrification system. It's not for a typical leach field or a repair.
Right.
And that triggers a whole nother thing for them
Well, we do have the other loan program.
at 5%.
It's 4%.
4 or 5, yep.
No, no, we just have a 5% and a 1%.
Is it 5%?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what the treasurer
it's
says,
5%.
yeah.
So the rates
We
are
lobbied
high.
for a lower rate.
Right, so
but
they're
we-
high, and so,
Yeah.
and again, to somebody who's in their 60s or 70s, who's on a fixed income, who just retired, all of this is a perfect storm.
Mm.
When you're on a fixed income and you're looking for the golden years and you were gonna go travel and that you're not, now you're paying for something that's in the ground and an unknown. Do you want that lingering over your head? They don't. That's why we're going to start seeing people leave, and we already are starting to, but it's the fishing what we're starting to see. And I think there's a lot of anxiety if you talk to the general consumer, and a lot of realtors aren't educated as well as I am about the Title V, but they want to understand, but they don't understand the process and what they just don't, everybody doesn't get it, but they're getting less money for their homes, or they will, because we are putting a stigma on certain sections of town also. So if you go into the north end right now, I had an open house the other day on the north end, and somebody said, well, this section's getting sewer. I said, this isn't the part they're talking about. It's on the other side of Route 88. That's where they're talking the first line. I said, I know, it was an economic development the other day. They don't know. It's all talk. It's hearsay. So we are creating a perfect storm. And I know we need to kind of correct that, and I try to as best I can, and I try to stay connected as best I can. But when you think about that, when they think, oh, I'm right off of Route 6, so it's just a matter of time, so why should I put in a new septic? Why should I even bother buying this house? So those prices are going to start to go down, and we are eventually giving a stigma to a whole section of town, because now they've got septics, then when do they convert to sewer? What happens to these people long term? And I'm sorry, but that devalues their tax value, that devalues their home values, and then that kind of puts a stigma in an area for a period of time until everybody comes up with a good case scenario to work with somebody. And again, failed septics are failed septics all day long. But if there's no reason to change it, like in my notes here, I talked about, is there money to have somebody who has a cesspool? Is there money to pump it once a year? Is there grants that we could get them to get it pumped once a year to keep it going until we know what's going on with DEP, till they know what the new Title V is, till we know what's going on? because like when you talk about the best available technology with the DEP right now, we all know that my iPhone is outdated 2 years ago. Best available technology changes every day. My MacBook is outdated from 2 years ago. My kids tell me I'm outdated 2 years ago. But let's talk, that's how things work right now. So that wording is scaring people who are staying in tune with that. And you will start seeing a lot of these people who do not understand. They put in a D-night, but there's a 1-year moratorium in the DEP that right now, how it's written, if that goes through, they might just put in the most available technology, and then they might have to replace it with a new DEP.
Well, I'm sure Phil
I know
will
Phil has
spend time on the DEP thing, but let me just say, and Phil is on,
I know.
has been appointed.
Phil, I've listened to the
a
meetings.
DEP group. The strategy that we're recommending for Westport with regard to should DEP proceed, and there's possibility that they may never even get to Westport, and then that's sort of off the table for us, but that we do a 20-year water management plan, which some of the strategies we're doing would fall under that plan and allow us to avoid the 5-year everybody upgrade and the 1-year moratorium, all that kind of stuff, which I agree is, there's a lot of fear mongering that's been going on
Correct.
around that, and I would caution us not to feed into that, because I think.
That's why I'm here.
But yeah, and I agree that we've tried to communicate that in when the hearings were first going around, but certainly revisiting that and reminding people that we have options that will be much more palatable for the town rather than a blanket 5-year upgrade, which there is absolutely no way that any town, including Westport, could enforce. And
The numbers don't make sense.
Right, and so it's not gonna happen, and DEP doesn't really want that to be their
Correct.
option.
But if you're in your 60s and you're buying a house here now in Westport and you're watching and you go, well, I'll be 75 when this all happens, or again, you're just looking at the long term here of what's happening. That's
The uncertainty,
The
yeah.
uncertainty is what this all is giving. Even
Yeah.
a watershed permit gives an uncertainty. And that's what we're talking about. So if you
Mhm.
want to, we are a retirement community, 100%. We have a beautiful summer community, and we want to keep it that way. But we need to kind of keep an open mind to communication to everyone of what's going on. And I feel like I'm only one person, and I'm a small little company that can talk about as much of this as I can, but we need to kind of educate, and I would like, and I've asked Matt, and I said if we could do more education of what is out there and how we can help the people out there. Check your drinking water, keep up the septics, not have them fail, keep them in compliance to what's going on, and keep it on a regular basis. And make it about what Title V was about, and make it for what it originally all came from in the first place. Drinking water. So I would tell you 90%, 95% don't have nitrates in the wells, that when I do a water test. But those reports do not go to the Board of Health, because most people do them voluntarily, and they're the buyers that are doing it. But you guys don't get copies of that. If I'm the listing agent, they don't get a copy of it, as the buyers keep it to themselves. I'll see it. They're like, oh, the water test was great. But if the nitrates are fine and the septic passed, that's usually a non-conversation. But those are things that people don't see. You guys don't even get copies of it. I don't. But those are the conversations. I don't see nitrates in a lot of wells. I don't see nitrates in a lot of things. I see other things that are issues that are more than that. So again, there's a lot of issues and people don't understand. I see bacteria in more wells than every single day that when I do a water test. But that's not what I was here to say. Is I'm just here to ask. Statewide, Title V cesspools can pass. Title V is a statewide thing. When you start changing things statewide to each little town, we have realtors that jump around from town to town that don't know the regs. It affects the consumers. I know this board has been very well at voicing what has changes here, because you guys have set a lot of standards, but I also am asking that if we could we've got lots of layers now going on in town, that it's causing a little bit of panic. And I think that for the taxpayers that have worked really hard and been here forever, I'm voicing my opinion for them, and that's why I'm here.
Great, thank you. The second area, sort of to touch on that one we don't have control over, and I know you've been meeting with the infrastructure economic development group, is the whole discussion around sewer. And I agree with you that it is vital to have accurate information about that, and they're still in the planning stage, but the more that is either fuzzy or there's misinformation out there, the higher the risk of sewer never happening.
Correct.
And then that economic development that should bolster the tax base and all that kind of stuff. So I agree with you on that 100%, and we hope to work with the infrastructure committee on how that cesspool and possible moratorium, which is what we're going to talk about next, how we can work together, because we're all wanting the best interests of the town. I think you make some good points around the financial disparities and how to, I hadn't, thinking about it in the context of stigmatizing, if you will. I don't
So
want that
in
to
real
happen,
estate, we
but-
try not to stigmatize properties. So if someone passes away in a home, we don't get, in my license states, I don't have to tell you that they passed in the home unless you ask me. But we're stigmatizing areas right now with all of this.
Mhm.
So you'll see I am seeing prices starting to drop off of certain areas because of that. And that is stigmatizing properties. And then as this all snowballs, you're gonna see that more.
Yeah. What we have seen is where we were able to identify cesspools and send a letter. It's around 220 properties in
Mhm.
town. It is all over town.
Oh,
It is,
100%.
so it's not in.
It's not just on the river, it's not just one place, it's
Right.
not just the north end, it is all over.
Right. And you are absolutely correct that we have hundreds, many more hundreds of files where there is no record because the house, the property's, as you say, 1930 or whatever, and there's just no record.
And it's been generation to generation to generation, and they don't even know what's there, and they're like, oh, I'm supposed to pump this? Oh, yeah, that would have been nice. That's kind of what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. So if there's no pump records, we have no idea. And that's something we haven't even begun to address yet.
But if there was money for some of these families to stay, again, because some of them aren't doing it maliciously. Some of them might be in their 80s or 90s, and they inherited the house from their parents. And those are the ones that break my heart. They didn't know they were doing anything maliciously, but they just didn't know.
Yeah.
And on the board, we don't think people are doing things maliciously. We
No.
understand that people might not understand what kind of system they have, but certainly that term that you're using, there's nothing malicious about what
Oh
this board
yeah,
is
I
doing.
didn't mean malicious.
And what-
I mean
and-
like,
and
like
what they're do- we
some
don't
people
see
are
them that
avoiding
way.
pumping, and some people
Yeah.
just don't. Malicious, I mean by not doing it doing it because they just don't care. They don't want to do it. There's people who just have no knowledge of what, like they see that truck go down the street, and why are they doing that? And they don't think twice about it.
So I think that I agree with you totally that a lot of things have changed since when we adopted the regulation, where inflation was, where interest rates were.
7% today.
And DEP, announcing last summer, with the initiative that they were going ahead with. And I don't want to get too deep into that or, say more than, Tanya has said, but it's a practical matter. I don't think that there is going to be any kind of near-term impact from whatever DEP comes out with in terms of its regulation package. And having participated in the last advisory committee, I think a lot of the most onerous parts of the Title V regulations are going to be loosened. They didn't give us any details, but are going to be loosened, but I still think that the pathway is going to be, if we have to do one, through a watershed permit. But even in doing a watershed permit, the burden of reducing nitrogen the way DEP sees the world is going to fall on residents. You can't get around not upgrading your system. It may not be best available technology. I think, so if you go if you would go the watershed permit route, I don't think you're in the best available technology morass. But we'll just have to see how that plays out. But I think that what we were thinking in 2021 was, the point that you made, which was that there did not really seem to be a way to address the fact that properties were being, transferred in ways when there wasn't a third-party seller, in which failed cesspools could just keep on getting passed on and passed on and passed on, that in the hierarchy of what could cause both public and environmental health, cesspools were the top violators because they don't do any treatment, and that eventually the community, may have to be trying to reduce nitrogen going into the river, and here you had systems that were 50 years old. It seemed like a reasonable opportunity, and because a lot of, through transactions in other ways, a fair percentage of the people who come in for upgrades are cesspools. So we thought, okay, 5 years, we're going to take a big chunk just out of the normal third-party transactions,
Correct.
to do that. But it is really, and I've become just switching the topic a little bit. I've just become so fundamentally aware in going through the DEP process how insensitive the state has been to the economic impact of what they are proposing. And
It's going to hurt a lot of people.
and I don't think that, I've tried to think of, what is a comparison situation where even people who have, some sort of compliant infrastructure are told that they have to make this significant investment in upgrading, and there's not going to be any financial support at all. Because right now, even for our loans, you have to have a failed system. Even to get a tax credit, you have to have
Correct.
a failed system. So,
And some of these people do
and-
not have enough equity. Some of these homes that are selling it
So
now,
it
they're not
is
going to be able to
really-
get a loan. They're going to foreclose.
it is really a problem. And we fought to lower the interest rate for the community septic loan program, and we were unsuccessful to do that. And recently, I've worked with Watershed Alliance to try to get the tax credit. So the governor proposed a much more generous tax credit, and there's a reasonable possibility that it will go through and be adopted by the legislature, but it only applies to failed systems.
Correct.
And then we've heard from people that, well, they don't want to test their system because they don't want to know, they don't want to know the answer to that question. And
You
of
have
course,
two
once
ca-
you have a failed system, then you're falling into Title V. And so it, and I think generally there's been this thought of the board not wanting to, I don't mean this, kind of picking winners and losers. Well, if you're in this sort, if you're 100 feet away, you have to do all this other stuff. You're 110 feet away, no. So we've tried to treat everybody equally, in terms of saying, well, it's all new construction. It's not, you don't have to, be a certain number of feet from the river. And I think similarly, we felt the same with cesspools because they're spread all over town. So I think it would be hard to do a moratorium for just one part of town. And it seems like you couldn't do it on an economic basis because people wouldn't be providing their economic information. I mean, what we've been doing by way of variances in situations on small lots is just looked at the relationship between the cost of the system improvement and the
10%.
value of the home. It had nothing to do with people's personal finances to the, to the extent that, and so, but I personally would not want someone to feel like they had to sell their home, because the cost of upgrading a cesspool, was out of their financial reach, and they didn't want to, and there wasn't a process that was set up that they felt comfortable with that would affirm, kind of confirm that in some way, So that's also difficult too. And I'm not proposing this as a solution. I certainly do understand that people who don't want to come into a public forum and talk about their finances, so, but I do think, and I think the board generally has been sensitive to, for the people who've come forward and made economic hardship issues. I think we've tried to figure out other ways, to solve the problem that was much more cost effective.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot of food for thought.
Thank you.
I think.
I have a question too.
I'm sorry.
I have a question too.
So let me just say, I think to the first point about more public education, we'd love to work with you in the realty
Thank you.
community. And I think that's an opportunity we want to take advantage of. We've all been very willing to, we write columns, we try to, within our limited resources, try to do, but we don't reach everybody. And certainly, I think we could, so that's one thing I'll talk with Matt and we'll see what we can figure out as some strategies around that. Some of the bigger policy issues, we have that 1% loan program. Maybe we can look at that. We have a meeting scheduled with the infrastructure committee to look at what is really happening with sewer. Can you tell us? Because there's a lot of stuff out there that it's making
Correct.
people crazy. So we should try to be on the same page and figure out, what kind of impact. And then you raised some points that I hadn't really fully appreciated before, that I think we need to sort of take back and have some discussions about, what are some of the things we can do about that. We've talked a little bit about the DEP thing. I think we sort of parked that.
Yep.
But the sewer and our local regulation and in terms of grants, would love to. The town doesn't have a lot of resources for grant writing
Correct.
and stuff like that. If you know of any
I
opportunities.
don't. There's hardly anybody doing grants anymore because they're so hard to come by.
Yeah, so, and then there's the whole override, which might provide more resources down the road to help target things for people who are, but that's a whole nother complication.
Correct.
Right now, let's first work on the education, and I think we'll come back, we have a meeting next week and with the infrastructure group, and we will have further discussions internally, taking your points and figuring out what additional things.
And
we
I'm
can
always
do.
available.
Yeah.
I mean, I just should say, it's still, there is almost 3 years, right? I mean, this doesn't really take place
But in-
until February 2026.
but in
Which
3
is why
years,
we,
people-
we put out the notice,
But that triggers it now.
Yeah,
So in
no,
3
I
years-
agree, yeah,
So in
because
3
we
years,
didn't want-
if it fails, what are they gonna get fined? Are they gonna put liens on their property? What happens to them? Is there a
Right.
gouging from the excavators from putting it in? Does the pricing go up? Where are the rates at? Where are they at financially? Where's the world at? So it's already started that trigger. So when you send it to somebody who's on a fixed income right now and they read it over 3 or 4 times and it's sitting in the back of their head of what's going on with the future, my future,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, my neighbor just put one in on it, and because they sold their house and it was $50,000. Is that me? Is that 50,000 or is it 70,000 in 3 years because of what's going on? You've now
Yeah.
created anxiety that we can't control, but now it's in the back of their head every day.
Yeah.
And then it's a conversation that you go on an appointment and or just even they walk in, can we talk?
Right.
And then and it's confidential with me and they can't go any further, but I will tell you that is more of my conversations every day. And that is a conversation that is more and happening every day, and that is why I'm here, because I did not want to come. I did not want to sit here. I did not want to put my face in public. But that is where I think we have a very huge concern. Once those letters, now I think I got 6 phone calls that day. Nicole, what do I do? Sit still. Don't move. Breathe.
Right, so my
Well,
question is
I-
related to that.
I would just say, because I was one of the people advocating for this, which was that, you know, we could have said nothing and then at year 5 said, okay,
Correct.
everybody's out of compliance,
Yes.
now what do we do? The idea was, here, now we're giving you, reminding you,
Yes.
start making some plans if you're thinking about doing X or Y.
Oh, I
So
agree.
It was the idea
The intent was good.
The intent-
of having this conversation, without, but I think not maybe being fully cognizant of how people in certain situations would respond to it.
Okay, so let me ask my question.
Sure, go ahead.
You said 6 people call in a day. How many people and how many families are you talking about right now?
Right now, I could probably say 30, but I'm talking out.
And all
Me
these-
actively as one
Okay,
realtor.
so 30, and are most of those families elderly and fixed incomes?
Yes.
Okay, so, they don't want to air their personal information.
Too proud.
Do you think they would be people who would be willing to go to the Council on Aging and have an education session
They
there?
might, in a group setting, people might come to a
Okay.
group setting for
So is it-
informational.
because-
As they're blending in, they're just getting information. If they're not getting their information taken, they're just showing up at a meeting. That's what I had thought about. I was gonna actually hold one at my office, just to have people understand that there's processes. They don't even know the process, like engineering, perks.
Sure.
They don't even understand any of it. They don't even understand the cost to begin with. So they don't understand, so they got a letter, and now how does it, so it's an hour on the phone of, you gotta hire an engineer, we gotta get a perk, we gotta get on the
Okay.
perk schedule, so that's
Okay.
all that.
So, just so you know, my background, I worked in geriatric mental health.
Yep.
So I understand this process very well.
Yes, and I deal with the public every day in this, yes.
So, as and part of my initiative is how do we educate the community? And
Correct.
so certainly looking at, I think, Tanya had suggested or talked about possibly doing something at the senior center, and so that,
And I would say not even the senior center, I think if
Do
you
it at
have
the
the
library.
library and a general,
Right,
so
okay.
they don't feel
Okay.
targeted. I feel like we should do it general.
okay,
It is at the school, in an auditorium, so it's comfortable, so it's a general information setting.
okay.
So they understand the process and how it goes, so they don't because again, it's the unknown which is fearful. Because again, if they were gonna leave it to their children, now might have a mortgage, they might have to have a line of credit. You see where I'm going?
Yes.
They were leaving it
Yes.
to their kids
I
free
do.
and clear before. They're not leaving this home free and clear because they don't have the cash in their bank account, or they can't go travel once they do this. There's a lot of steps for these people. And again, if it's a denitrification system that has to be put in, but because most of these lots will not qualify for some of these cesspool areas that don't hit the leaching field type system, they're gonna hit the denite type systems. And then it's available technology and all that, they don't understand. So it's more just explaining the process and the step-by-step processes that what the public does not get.
All right, so, it would also be helpful if we were gonna set something up like that, if we could notify those particular people.
Yep, I have no problem with that.
I mean, and I think that I mean, that makes eminent sense. It's just that the timeline to give people answers, like what's the Title V regulations gonna be? Like,
We don't have.
what's the Phase 1 sewer gonna
Right.
be like?
The
You know,
goal-
what's the timeline? There's no answer. I mean, Title V we'll probably know about in the fall, you know, and then we'll have some time to digest it. The sewer, you know, is a whole, you know, totally different kettle of fish. And so,
Even
just
though
with
they're-
that qualification of understanding that we would need to come up with, since we couldn't answer these questions, but I think people would be still looking to us for a solution. And that's the tricky part.
And that's why I was asking for the moratorium on the
Yeah.
cesspools now,
Yeah.
until everything kind of settles out,
Yeah.
until there's more of an answer, because again, the anxiety, and that's
Yeah.
where it comes from, and the unknown, because the best available technology, all that, again, comes up into the whole picture
Yeah.
until we know the answer, because people would like to start doing it now who want to do the right thing so they can plan financially.
Right.
But we don't have a plan, and we can't tell them if they can put in a leach field right now, or if they could, but they're all having the D-night. It doesn't make sense
Yeah,
for what these
yeah.
people are going through, and
Yeah.
that's just where it comes down to, is they're caught in the middle by something that unfortunately this board passed, and that's why I came to speak.
Yeah, no,
I appreciate your time.
really muddy
Yeah,
the
thank
waters.
you. And thank you for the amount of time.
Yes, and we'll, I think, you know, as I said, we'll definitely work together on some multiple, probably sessions, education,
Okay.
information sessions. And we are pursuing, trying to learn more ourselves, both about the DEP and about the sewer. You know, as I said, you brought a lot of feedback to us that we'll sort of try and figure out what other things we might be able to, you know, address.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so that is a robust discussion around, we haven't talked specifically about the the discussion you had, Matt, about non-failed cesspools along Route 6 Business District. So you want to kick us off on that? And I know I'm sensitive to the time. Let me just check. Before we continue that part of the discussion, I'm just going to segue for a minute. Is there anything under the information table for Riverdale or board member updates, Phil, if you have to leave at 5:30, that you want to bring up just for?
No, I don't. No,
Okay.
I don't have anything under those.
So we have another 10 minutes to talk about the moratorium discussion, and then feel free to excuse yourself, Phil, and
Okay.
Don and I can finish up on the rest of the agenda. Phil, I don't know if you'd seen this. Matt brought this down to.
Con, can I just say one thing real quick? Just, I wanted to say this while Phil was still here. Just something to think about for the next meeting. It's not on this agenda, but we have the 1%, community loan we give out to people that the qualifications are low income, but they have to do D-night.
Yeah.
Maybe we, the board, will think about this and consider removing the requirement for D-night from that loan. And
If it's
just structure,
cesspools.
just structure for the cesspool upgrades. To date, we have nobody who's taking that loan.
We'd have to go back to town meeting, though.
No,
I didn't think we.
this is the grant funded piece, the DEP. They said low income, right? This is the.
Oh, I see.
This is the different, not.
No, but it
the-
required D-night. It wasn't the income part.
Well, I think it's also low income and D9.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we should talk about that.
Yeah, just.
And there's not
you guys
that much
think
money in that pot anyway.
There's about 134,000.
Yeah, so.
But it will help.
But anyway, in
Yeah.
any event, yeah.
Okay, so anyways, I coming off my meeting with Jim about about this whole cesspool versus sewer, the idea came up in the meeting that the board consider a moratorium along Route 6, specifically the business district. I said that, it's not a bad idea, I'll take it back to the board for discussion. So I printed Michael Burris and Nadine printed this map out for me, showing the business district, which is all in pink along Route 6. Just to give you guys a visual of what we may be talking about if, I don't believe the entire length of that business district, there's not a whole lot of cesspools involved there, at least the ones that we know of.
Right.
I'm not sure if any of the records that don't have anything in the files would apply to that stretch. They may. But as far as the ones we know of, there's not many cesspools on the entire stretch of the business district.
Right, looking just at Route 6, State Road, there is one known cesspool up to Route 88. Possible 3 or 4 with no records. And then from Route 88 to the Dartmouth line, just on Route 6, there's 7 cesspools, of which 3 already have plans, approved plans for upgrade, and I forget what the number is, 30, maybe 20 something unknowns. So it's not an insignificant number, but not hundreds. That does not include, are these individual parcels?
Yes, I asked
Okay.
them to print it that way.
Okay,
Well, in my conversation, with Bob Daler, so it's my understanding that everything that is happening now with the sewer in terms of looking for funding, design, all of that is just in this first section,
right.
up to 88. And it's not going to be until,
And it's just Route,
just Route 6.
and it's
yeah.
not any side.
No,
stuff.
I mean, there might be,
There's no
right,
side stuff
right,
over
right,
there.
right. There's no going down into the side streets. It's, as you've reflected, I think, in whatever people talk about the spine. And so, and I think we'll be able to clarify this, next week at the
yeah.
IOC meeting. But, and that, and assuming we get whatever the kind of seed money grant that they're looking for, I think, he was saying that the full, anyway, that the full spine is $30 million, and it's about $8 million to go just up to 88. And that won't come up until next spring, at town meeting, if it was, to do a debt exclusion to kind of fund a clean water loan from DEP, that most people do to get sewer funding.
Okay.
And they're still trying to
And
get.
that would still be for the first.
That's
phase.
just for the first one, and that's gonna be $8 million, kind of right now. So, just to say, I think it is difficult to justify the moratorium solely on the basis of the problems that could, for this part of it, the problems that could arise, with someone investing in a septic system and then having to be, and then have to face a sewer upgrade, because there's only one residence there. If we want to, it's a different question of a whole bunch of other reasons to do a moratorium, but it seems difficult for that, for that purpose, or to declare a moratorium rather than to work something out. And Title V actually does provide for entering into agreements with individual lot owners, up to 5 years long, if there is an agreement, for example, to connect to a sewer at some, at a future
So
date. So
they-
there's
they get
other things that could be done.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, so that's, but I think that the reasons that were being raised, you know, which Nicole spoke about and which I understood that, you know, Mr. Soares raised, you know, kind of went beyond that.
Well, it sounds like there may be an ability for us to link the, once we know, have a better sense of the sewer timeline. And, I mean, I think one thing to think about is the override is going to be the first sort of test,
Mhm.
and that comes at the end of July. And then I don't know what the time frame for them to get a notification back, because they've got some earmarked funding and they're looking for grants, right, for a lot of the first part.
They're trying to get federal money. I don't know how successful, you know, that is. Like, I don't know if it's in. So what I understood was that was actually frustrating people here was that all the infrastructure money that was going for wastewater type projects, that Massachusetts, I'm going to say took the position, but I don't want to, that basically all that should go into the Clean Water Fund for loans, that there would be no infrastructure grants here, it would all be managed under loans, which, and everyone knows the difference between a grant and a loan, just in terms of impacts to communities. So I think that the planning board folks are trying to see if our Congress people can find other ways to give, you know, provide some of the grant money,
Right.
you know, provide grant money for it. But it seems like a lot of the other design and other kind of obstacles are being worked on, so.
Okay.
And-
But sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just gonna, just because I unfortunately feel I have to leave, and I don't know if there is gonna be an opportunity, you know, for, maybe for us to get together before the IOC meeting, just to talk about what we wanna say there, or come to that meeting with, but,
Well, I think one of the, let's go ahead. Keep on doing that, sorry.
no, just, you know, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm personally, you know, I've thought back about, you know, the discussions that we had at the time that we adopted, you know, this approach, because it initially started with a really different approach and came around, you know, to this approach. And I'm certainly open to rethink this now, and, you know, particularly in light of looking at, you know, what the recent results of, from, you know, monitoring the river, you know, has been. So, you know, and, you know, maybe, you know, maybe for all the reasons that Nicole mentioned, you know, that there is an opportunity just to pause and let some of the dust settle, and then figure out the best way to move forward on this topic.
Okay.
So, anyway, but I don't have any particular
Well, I think,
suggestions.
okay, so two things. One, I think the first order of business for us next week is, there's, I think, not a complete understanding of our regulation, so it's.
Right.
And the way it's been presented to me is to sort of
Yeah,
more of an educational from, here's what our,
Right.
you know, what our regulation says, and kind of, and I think we want to hear from them what, you know, the status and what the time frame is, because there's rumors going all over the place about where it might show up and when, and that's not helpful.
Yeah.
So to get the actual information, and then I think we probably will have follow-up discussions to figure out sort of policy. I mean, we're not going to be prepared to say, oh, we're going to do X.
yeah, I don't think we'd
or Y.
have to take a vote at the meeting about what
Yeah.
we're gonna do. I agree with that.
But maybe tying in the way DEP gives us the ability to have agreements to extend use of a cesspool until the septic, the sewer comes down, that 5-year period idea. I have to look at that language. That would be helpful to look
Yeah,
at to give us some guidance. And I was gonna say one more thing, but I forgot.
Where's the,
So it can't be too important.
How about a working meeting? Phil had mentioned maybe getting together before the 22nd. The only days available are the 20th and 21st, because Monday's Juneteenth and nobody's around. Town's closed that day.
Let's see. What you said, 20th or 21st?
That's really, well, yeah, because the 22nd is when we're meeting with the infrastructure committee. We guess we could do it earlier in the day. Actually, that's not good for me at all, because we have the grant group meeting that morning,
Yeah.
What day's not good for you?
the 22nd.
Oh, the 21st is open for me. If we did it on the 20th, it would have to be early.
sorry, just laughing at a typo.
Phil, do you have a,
Oh,
Preference for
I'm,
working?
you know, during the day, I'm generally free during the week.
my calendar, I prefer to do it early Tuesday then, the 20th.
9 o'clock early enough, Donna?
Yeah, that'll get me, yeah.
Okay.
So, six-
So we'll have a working meeting. 9 o'clock on the 20th.
Okay.
Here's the, so here's the,
Oh,
a
okay.
little thing
The
on,
section.
yeah,
Great.
the different, this is
Okay.
the one, the upgrade part of it.
Yeah, we do have, as a reminder, we have that provision around for D-nights, the timeline for connection.
Yes,
That's already in our reg that.
right,
that's
right, that's,
years
right,
minus.
right. I mean,
So,
I think it
yeah.
made sense that, because we didn't, at least my thinking about it at the time, was we didn't want to, like, so to speak, hogtie the, whatever becomes this water and sewer commission as to what the rules were going to be.
I think it was also for cluster systems, we thought there might be
Yeah.
more interest in that.
Right,
To make neighborhood systems, but that's not going anywhere apparently.
yeah,
Um,
so
Um,
we
But
really haven't
most of the
had.
build-out is not along Route 6, it's further south in town. so
Right,
it's
right.
sort of-
Well, we really haven't had a partner to talk to about this stuff,
Yeah.
because it's taken so long for that piece to come to
Yeah,
fruition.
okay,
Okay,
well, let's
all
pick that up again on the 20th and see if there's
20th and
anything
9th, that's great, okay.
further on that, and we'll let you go to Boston. And Donna and I will continue the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
The record reflects that my house.
Okay. All right, I think that we've exhausted ourselves on that one. So let's move on to item number 6, information table for River Day. And I'm going to turn that over to Dawn.
Well, I sent the request, you sent me that website, and I received a box, but it wasn't, not everything was in there. So I do have some information about mosquito-borne and ticks, and there was another one, disaster preparedness
Preparedness,
stuff.
mhm.
So I have a couple of things. I sent an email to Linda for her suggestions for other topics she thought.
She's out a lot because of using up vacation time at the end of the year, so.
So I mean, I'll continue to work on, I don't know if there's other things that, Matt, you think we would want to address during the River Day. I initially thought if we talked about septic, we had some information about septic systems, but we could also, my focus would be on any kind of safety and disease transmission or concerns regarding Lyme disease, mosquito-borne diseases.
Summer.
Yes, really-
Summertime, heat stroke.
Yeah, so we have good literature I can give you for, vector-borne diseases, like Lyme disease, Lyme disease, Triple E, West Nile virus, all that stuff. Sun safety is a good thing
Yes,
during summertime. We have some good literature on that. If I could get you a bunch of stuff. Something just came out from the state today. It was great about the
Yeah,
mosquitoes.
their
and
press release about. all the summer.
And we had some
You get
signs,
I'll forward it
I
to you.
don't get it.
we had some good signs printed up. Rochester had some signs printed up for their trailheads for, you know, how to avoid tick bites and how to avoid mosquito bites
I have
exposure.
some, yeah, I got some pamphlets on,
Yeah.
on that.
We have some tick cards floating around here.
Yeah, I need the tick cards. I ordered those, they didn't send those to me.
No, we still have, I think we have good stacks still in Linda's office somewhere.
Yeah, those are helpful. I have it up on my fridge.
Yeah.
I had a teeny poppy-sized tick between two fingers, like right in that the other day. It's like,
Yeah. So, I don't know if there's anything else that we would want to post. I saw something on the news about, because of climate change, how dengue fever is increasing in, I think it was Peru. And they were looking at the increased heat and the increased rain as causing that. So I'm, you know, concerned about whatever. I was hoping Phil would be here though, because we're on the climate resilience, the health subcommittee, to maybe look at some of that as well. So, but we can maybe talk a little bit more about it too next week when we meet, and I'll continue to gather information. Do you have stuff upstairs now for me that I can take?
Probably not readily.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, because I'm
available.
gonna also do some posters and then have the information on the table, so.
so one thing that might be helpful, if we can maybe next week set a date for an information session that we could then publicize at that meeting. So-
Information session in regards to,
The discussion around the process for cesspool upgrades and all that.
Right.
I'd like to coordinate that with
Nicole.
Nicole
Yeah.
because she has, you know, she's out and about in the community, so she might be able to get people into this information session. But next week, to have the information.
No,
not
to have
next
it,
week.
to have a date so that,
So we'll put that
like
on the.
in July,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that on June 24th, we could say, oh, if you're interested, you know, you want to learn more
Right.
about cesspool upgrades.
So a date for an info session will be on the agenda. Phil's wanted the meeting specifically to come up with something to talk specifically to the infrastructure committee about.
Yep. I've been working on a info presentation for that too, so we can go over that.
Do we have any things set for shorelines?
No. We
Maybe I
do-
could do something related to, I'm gonna be away in July, it won't get done this month. Maybe
I
can
was
get
gonna
it
say, you know, the DPH press release that we just got about all the summer safety
Yeah.
tips? We could convert that to an article for this month.
So,
I'll forward it to you, Donna.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I think already what you have is good info to have, you know, at the table, so it will be robust enough. And I'm sure we can think of more. Anything else on that? Okay.
I think we have a table. They asked me if I wanted a table to talk about septic. I said, no, we want to do it for any summer-related public health issues like ticks, mosquitoes, heat stroke, that kind of thing, so.
Let's talk about smoke in the air.
Yeah,
Although it's better now.
I had trouble one of the days.
Yeah.
I had a lot of trouble, so I tried to stay in, but
Yeah. Well, we escaped the worst, but
we did.
this time, who knows? Okay, any other board member updates?
Not that I can think of.
I can't either.
I know that you didn't mention it, but that Linda's still having her blood pressure clinics on Wednesdays from
8:30 to
8:30.
11:30, yep. Popularity's increasing, word's getting out.
Are people coming in?
Yeah, 2 or 3. Hopefully get to 6, you know, by the end of the month. But the word's got to get out there.
Yeah.
So,
I could take blood pressures at the Riverday if anybody wanted them.
well, just for the public's benefit, you know, we do hold blood pressure clinics here in the town nurse office from 8:30 to 11:30 every Wednesday. We encourage everybody to stop by, and, you know, it's a good thing to have checked on a regular basis.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I just, because I quickly rambled it off because I wanted Phil to hear it, but I just wanted to say, I think it's a good idea for us maybe to discuss that 1% loan that we have and looking at the D-night requirement and maybe freeing up those funds for cesspool upgrades.
Yeah, so put that on the agenda for the
Okay.
20th. Okay. If that's
And that certainly
nothing
would,
else,
would
then,
help. Nope, so I move that we adjourn the meeting at 5:41 PM.
I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous with one absence. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned.